School choice and voucher programs are one of the most divisive issues in the field of education right now. I have talked to a lot of different teachers about this issue, and they have strong opinions on either side. And to get ready for this topic, I put on my cowboy hat for you today. And if you haven't already guessed, we're talking about Texas. And let me be clear here right from the get go, my grandfather is from Texas, my sister lives in Texas. I have ex girlfriends who live in Texas. I go to Texas quite often. It's a great place. So I have nothing against Texas, and I don't live there currently. So I don't know all the facts and details, but apparently Texas has passed a school voucher program that is making headlines. And we're going to take a look at that here in this video. But before we get to that, I have a quick favor to ask. If you could please like this video, also hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this kind of educational content and you want to stay caught up with Classroom Camp. That would help me out here on the channel, and I would appreciate it very much. I'd love to hear from you, especially down in the comments. So don't forget to leave a comment before you leave today. But let's take a look at some of the news that's out there. This is on the Texas Tribune, April 17, 2025. It says, in historic first, Texas House approves private school voucher program. The bill would let families use taxpayer dollars for their children's private schooling. Lawmakers also signed off on a sweeping $7.7 billion package to boost public school funding. Right here in the first paragraph, the Texas House gave final approval Thursday to a bill that would create a $1 billion private school voucher program, crossing a historic milestone and bringing Governor Greg Abbott's top legislative priority closer than ever to reaching his desk. And look at this. The initial vote came more than 10 hours after the chamber gave preliminary approval to its sweeping $7.7 billion school funding package, which would give local districts more money per student and raise teacher salaries. Crazy. It says here the House's plan would put $1 billion to create educational savings account, a form of vouchers that families could use to pay for private school tuition and other school-related expenses like textbooks, transportation, and therapy. The bill would tie the voucher program's per student dollars to public education funding, so the amount available to each participating student would increase when public schools receive more money and dip when public education funding declines. Now look, it's hot in here, so I had to take the hat off, but it's not going to change anything. We're still going to talk about this. And I still like Texas. Now, when you look at this article and you read through it, there are a lot of great things in here on the surface, because it does talk about how, well, teacher salaries are going to increase. Students who are economically disadvantaged, they're going to have access to additional funding. So, they can go to a better school. They don't have to go to the neighborhood school or that isn't all that great, that has uncertified teachers. Well, they can choose maybe a private school that is much better, is known, has a reputation for better scores and better schooling overall. So a lot of great things here. Billions of dollars going into this, but there are a lot of lingering questions. And while there are some who are on the side of this and think this is a great idea, there are those who strongly oppose this. Now, what is my opinion? Well, I am somewhere in the middle. I think that this is an interesting idea. It's an interesting program. And as an outsider looking in, I would like to see what actually happens, because there are a lot of people who speculate on potential downsides, potential negatives of school choice and school voucher programs. But I'm curious to see what actually happens, because I don't think anyone can accurately predict what the potential ramifications are. This is a system with many moving parts. And yes, I think some of the predictions, which we'll get into here in just a moment, are probably correct. However, there are probably lots of positives as well. So only time will tell how this all plays out, and we're just going to have to wait and see. So I'm curious because I do think the education system overall has a lot of problems, a lot of issues, and I think it could be a good idea to disrupt the system and see what happens, to see if we can create change through radical means, which a lot of people believe this is. So we're going to look at some of the criticisms, and I have 3 questions that I want to look at today. And the first here, if you look at this article, it says how the $1 billion Texas school voucher program could have a nationwide ripple effect. And that's actually my first question. Will this have a ripple effect? And personally, I think that yes, it will have a ripple effect, because I think that as the Department of Education has been massively scaled back and there are some other changes, things are kind of in play right now. I think that, like I said in my stance, that other states are going to be looking at this as an experiment to see how this plays out. And they may follow suit. And sure, there is a lot of bureaucracy behind this, and you have certain people who are going to advocate for these programs and try to get bills passed without really knowing what the repercussions may be. But still, I think that it's going to this is going to be a big deal in the United States. People are going to undoubtedly going to be watching Texas and taking inspiration from this, for better or for worse. So that's my first question, is will this have a nationwide ripple effect? And I would like to hear your predictions down in the comment section below. So like I said, don't forget to leave those before you leave today. Now, let's look at some other things here in this article. And some of these, I came up with the questions for this video before I read this article. But some of these are brought up in this article. Now, this is being called a direct assault on the Texas public education system. That's how social justice groups like the Texas Freedom Network are describing the passage of a bill that would create a $1 billion school voucher program in the state. The Texas House passed Senate Bill 2 early Thursday with support from Governor Greg Abbott, who has championed school vouchers. These taxpayer-funded subsidies divert money away from public schools, allowing families to use them to cover their children's tuition at private or religious schools. This is part of a coordinated strategy to dismantle public education statewide and nationally, since Donald Trump literally called Republicans and told them that they had to vote yes on this voucher scheme, said Emily Witt, spokesperson for the Texas Freedom Network, a grassroots organization of religious and community leaders. Republicans have done a very coordinated job of framing this as something that it's not. It's certainly not choice. It's going to really devastate a lot of public schools and rural communities here in Texas. And like I said a moment ago, there are a lot of claims being made about the positive benefits of this, that teacher salaries are going to go up, that students who are economically disadvantaged will have better opportunities. They can choose to go to a better school. And maybe some of this is true. But here, others believe that it is not. So let's see here. Some of the claims here that are reasons why this is bad. If you look here, it says it's absurd for Governor Abbott and his pro-voucher allies to claim that a diversion of $1 billion in tax funds to private schools over the next budget cycle will not hurt our underfunded public schools, where the vast majority of our students will remain. Avidia Molina, president of Education Labor Organization, the Texas State Teachers Association, said in a statement, that voucher will increase to $3 billion by 2028 and more than $4 billion by 2030 if this voucher bill becomes law. In Texas, most students attend public schools, with an estimated 6% enrolled in private schools. Rural communities overwhelmingly attend public schools because of the dearth of private schools in such areas. Accordingly, voters in the country have typically opposed school vouchers, perceived as vehicles to help families in cities send their kids to private schools. Even with the school voucher program, Experts do not expect private schools to be inundated with new students from public schools. And I can tell you why this is, because I have talked to some people in Texas who have explained a few things to me. So one of them is this. I know someone who lives in a rural area, very small town or a small district that only has one private school. And that private school is packed full. They can't even accept any more students because private schools do have a limit, have a maximum number of students that they can accept. So what happens in that district where you're taking money away from public schools in that district, and you're giving it supposedly to students who can apply and can use that money to go to a private school, yet there's only one private school and it's not accepting anyone else. So what are students supposed to do? But in that case, you would be draining funds from those public schools and giving it to students elsewhere, so it could hurt those communities. And that's something that is being said. Something else that someone else told me is that basically schools were operating under budget before COVID. And COVID changed a lot of things in the worldwide, especially in the United States. We can see the immediate effects of that, since some of us who are watching that are watching this video are here. But now schools are operating even lower. They have less money post-COVID, and they were already operating low before COVID. So now you're draining even more funds from public schools and making the situation for them even worse. And the cost of things has gone up. So that's a potential issue. So I see what people here are saying, and that when they bring that up in this article here, and they're talking about how most students attend public schools, so it's a complicated situation. Something else that is brought up here is that schools could potentially, it says they could essentially reject a child that they feel just doesn't meet the culture of their school. Witt continued. That could be because a child comes from a low-income family. It could be because they're not white. It could be because they're LGBTQ or their parents are LGBTQ or not married. So again, we see a potential issue here where students who have funding are still rejected because a private school is, in the name, a private school, and they kind of set their own rules and boundaries. They don't have standardized testing, things of that nature. So what it could potentially create an equity problem. So let me pull up my questions here. So another question that I have here that I would like to ask to you is, will private schools increase their tuition? Because this is another potential effect, and it's not brought up here in this article, but knowing that students are getting additional funding from the school voucher program, is it possible that private schools will now increase their tuition fees, which creates another problem for the students who are paying to go to their schools? And something that is touched on here in this article is extracurricular activities. Because let's say, for example, that you have a student who has is given a voucher to attend a private school. Are they able to pay and participate in the same way that other higher income students are able to? Do they get to play sports? If there is a class that is going on a special trip to visit Washington, D.C., are they left out? Do vouchers cover any of the cost of that? Are they left out of those types of activities because they do not have that extra money on the side to pay for that? That's another question. So will private schools increase their tuition fees? Let me know down in the comment section below what you think about that. So we're going to finish here with the end of this article. It says here, Texas already spends more than $5,000 less per student than the national average, ranking Texas 46th among the states in the District of Columbia, she said. The school finance bill, also approved by the House, will not come close to ending the state's financial neglect of public education. The House's $395 increase in the basic allotment, which hasn't been increased in 6 years, will provide only a third of what is needed to cover districts' loss from inflation alone. Republicans have sold people a lie. They said repeatedly that it won't harm public schools, and there's just no way that it won't. And I don't think that's their goal. I genuinely think that their goal is to eliminate public education, and this is the first step there. A year from now, people are going to see that the neighborhood schools in their communities are shuttering or having to cut resources for students, and they're going to be really upset. And I think there's going to be hell to pay at the ballot box. So my final question. Are Republicans truly trying to eliminate public education? Is that the end goal here? And if so, what comes after public education? What does the education system in the United States look like if voucher programs like the one that is being implemented or proposed here in Texas go out on a wide scale and become universal? Let me know down in the comment section below. Really, that's all I have for you in this video. I wanted to talk about this because this is a huge deal, especially for those educators who are in Texas. And, you know, it's going to affect the education system in so many unpredictable ways. I have already personally seen the effects of that because, just to be completely transparent, I currently work at a charter school that is now being taken over and is going to be under new management. And one of the reasons cited for that is because of the national push towards school choice, and because the new management company falls more in line with the ideals of school choice and whatnot. So that's just a whole big deal. And I think that we're going to see more of this on a national scale. You're going to start seeing some changes. People are going to be thinking about things differently, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Like I said, one last time, don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below before you leave. Hit the like button because that helps me out here on the channel. Subscribe if you enjoyed this kind of content and you want to stay caught up on education news. That's all I have for you in this video. See you in the next one.